It's that time. Now everyone can hear us.
That time again.
So we created tiny supercomputers, literally. And for anyone who's been following us for a while, then you've seen a little bit on this already. But we've been working on a platform called the Olympiad for a while. We've been working on what's called DevSecOps for a while. And
Yeah, I mean, basically everything that we've made up until this point in Notia Point, we've kind of reinvested back in the business in the form or in the development of our latest new product, special edition, small run that we're going to be offering of these Notia Point Raspberry Pi supercomputers that we are building and custom building for you. So that's what we're here to talk about tonight. But yeah, so Nathan, do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about like how we got to this point? You know, what brought us to building little mini supercomputers for Notia Point?
so basically, to really get into it, like it all began when we had a tournament. We had this hacking tournament. And this hacking tournament, I mean, we go all the way back. We had this idea that we could have this cybersecurity deathmatch because everyone was like, well, we want to learn how to hack for real. Like, we want to learn more real world things. That's what everyone would always complain about with the labs that we used to teach.
Yeah.
For different organizations and whatnot, and they're like, oh, it's all, simulation, but we want more real world things. So we're like, well, why don't we just give everyone a genuine real world hacking deathmatch? And I worked with a number of students to go through what at the time I called a sprint, which is basically DevSecOps for just preparing for a continuous program. And I was like, well, I'll teach you guys how to do a development sprint. And we ran through it. Everyone got everything ready. And then the night before the tournament, we just pulled this all-nighter. And
and I feel like that was one of the first times that you had really worked with our CTO.
Well, that's what I was about to say.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry.
And so, like, when we were pulling this all-nighter, basically I had asked for help from our CTO. His name's Jordan Anderson, and we'll pull up his face if we can find a picture while we're talking at some point. But basically, we just stayed up all night trying to get like all these Pis configured, and the idea was give everyone a Raspberry Pi, like a physical device, and then have everyone brute force into these physical devices, like literal devices, and make sure that they're all prepared, all ready to go. And it was a lot more work than we had bargained for at the time, and it was a lot more work than we had anticipated or expected. And the next thing we know, after the tournament, we were like, well, people enjoyed it. It needs some work, but people enjoyed this.
Yeah, and I feel like that first iteration, it was like you just kind of brute forced in and then shut down the system, and
yeah,
some people were really quick and like got it really easily, and then other people it took a little longer to like figure out how to learn it. But everyone was able to do it and had a really like good time with it, and that's why, we were like, we got to do something more with this.
Yeah, so we were like, okay, so how about we like expand this whole thing? And we're like, okay, so how can I make this a lot more reasonable? Because it was really cumbersome to host. It was really cumbersome to set up. You had to have a router, different things. All the networking had to be set up. It was a little overly complicated at the time.
Absolutely, it was.
And then we realized that what if on a single Raspberry Pi we could host the entire thing that once required at least 6 separate physical Raspberry Pis? What if we could all do it from one Raspberry Pi, just one? And everyone, basically, if they have laptops or cell phones, no matter what they're using, you'd only need one Raspberry Pi, and then everyone could log in and do the same deathmatch. And then the next thing we knew, it turned into a program that we called the Job Simulator. And it was called the Pied Hacker Job Simulator, which it had all of the stuff that we used to build it turned into this thing that we called the Olympiad white paper. And the Olympiad white paper was the beginning of a platform. We made this open source platform. And so then the interesting thing from there was, we started working more on growing our community and asking people like what would be helpful, and all of this time went by, all of this work, and then next thing you know, we have this Facebook group, and A lot more has been happening. People have been going online, and all of a sudden, when everyone went online over the pandemic, everyone was wanting to start building home labs. So then I just started getting endless questions on, well, how can I learn at home? How can I learn at home?
Right.
And then on top of that, the number one thing that people were targeting for businesses are people working at home. And so we were like, well, how can we help people learn at home and then also defend people who are those vulnerable home workers?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And there was that whole, and I think still a problem with like people getting Zoom bombed and like all these different things. So it was like security all of a sudden became something that people were worried about within their own home networks. So
yeah, and then it's like even like if you have employees, chances are a lot of companies have just gone purely online, even if you had offices, and all your security just goes out the window. And now all these companies who depended on having everyone come to the office, where a lot of companies, believe it or not, their security is dependent on you come to the office, you connect to the office's network and their stuff, and it's very dependent on their ecosystem. All of a sudden you uproot a whole company from their ecosystem. It was just mass chaos, and it's still mass chaos actually. And I don't think anyone's really gotten situated or stable. So all of a sudden people started asking about this Olympiad thing and asking about like, oh, home security. And so we actually got a lot more serious about it. And we're like, well, why don't we just make an actual platform and actually release some stuff? And we released what's called the Pied Hacker Experience, which was a huge step forward in teaching people how to build their own home security and things like that, using things like Raspberry Pis. But something was missing, because you have all this stuff, and we have all these people who've been so supportive. And honestly, when we started getting all of the sales for our Pied Hacker Experience program, it let us know that we figured something out that's going to be helpful. Something that's going to be helpful for the world, something that's going to be helpful for individuals, something that's going to be helpful for businesses, something that's going to be helpful for anyone who has internet at home and wants to be safe. Or safer than what people are generally used to. And realistically, only one person has to be technical in a household in order for a household to be very secure. So, we're like, well, we have DevSecOps workshops, cybersecurity things, how to build a whole cybersecurity program. But what we don't really have? The appliance for everyone to just take this thing, plug it in. We tell you exactly, because, since we build it, structure it, design it, where it has all the right specs for what we recommend building. It works exactly the way that it should with the software that we, help people put together for their DevSecOps and learn all these things. And enter the Olympiad is what was born. And that brings us to this happy little creature here that you see, which is essentially a supercomputer. And now I say a supercomputer. That's something that can be a little confusing for folks, because some might not necessarily know what makes something a supercomputer. Well, there are a couple of things that go into making something a supercomputer, and I'm just going to touch on that a little bit let's just first start by taking a look at what's under the hood on one of these things. So, for one, if anyone knows what a Raspberry Pi is, and if you follow me, you probably know what a Raspberry Pi is. If you have multiple pieces of hardware that have certain levels of back and forth communication, a lot of you have heard of Kubernetes. And for anyone who's interested in cybersecurity and DevSecOps and all these things, and especially operations, Kubernetes is something that people talk about. It's a big deal. It's something that's really common. And the thing about Kubernetes is it has timings that allow you to basically build a supercomputer. And so we were like, oh, why don't we just do it then? And so right now we are only able to provide developer kits. Long term, we're going to be building like full-on consumer-friendly supercomputers. That's going to take time, though. That's going to take time. That's going to take more money than we've already spent. And we spent all of our money on making this possible. And so now that we have this, we have an opportunity to now push further to bring supercomputing to the home, because if you have a system like this running Kubernetes, it can still be a supercomputer that runs Kubernetes inside of Kubernetes.
And before we get too into that, let's talk a little bit about what this is. Like, what are we building here? This kit is essentially a DevSecOps tool We designed it specifically for the Raspberry Pi so that we could control, the form factor, the cooling solutions. You can see on this one on the screen here, there are 2 Raspberry Pis clustered together. And so that's what we are offering today, are these clustered Raspberry Pi supercomputers for DevSecOps and for running the Olympiad, which is a cybersecurity SIM solution. So that's what we've been working on here. And
so it's it's one of the easiest ways to learn more about technology, one of the easiest ways to learn how cloud technologies work, one of the easiest ways to learn cybersecurity. And what we've found is anyone who spends time doing these sorts of things, it translates into skills that translate into careers for folks. And it is not necessarily the easiest skill set to learn, but when you have everything you need in one place in a design that works the way that you need it to work, with the right cooling, with the right guidance, what we've decided to do early on is we've been offering workshops to teach people how to do this stuff 100% on their own, and we called it bring your own device is what we used to say. Well, now we're upgrading our opportunities to say our workshops, you can actually just get a full-on set of hardware that works with our workshops where you don't have to go out and bring your own device. And then on top of that, you get one of our more high-end devices. And what exactly is in all of these? So let's talk about what's running on this, like what's under the hood here. So not only do we have 2 Raspberry Pis, but we have silent cooling. And also it's high pressure silent cooling. So anyone who's ever heard of Noctua is a manufacturer of fans, but we're able to set up
brown things.
These fancy little brown fans. They're like top of the market for, and there are other good fans out there. I'm not saying they're the only good fans on the planet, but they're just outstanding high-end cooling solution fans that are high pressure and they're silent, they're quiet. So for those who are like, I don't really want to have one of these loud, noisy things, one of our early cases was the Argon 1, which is a great Raspberry Pi case. You can do a lot of the things that we do, but it also only has 1 Raspberry Pi in it. It only cools 1 Raspberry Pi at a time, and especially if you're trying to do supercomputing and get into that sort of stuff, and you really want to have like what's called a redundant security system at home, that security that doesn't go down, or at least security that's much harder to take down. These things are also loud. You don't want to have one of these on your desk. Like
when you're trying to film video, you definitely don't want one of those things buzzing around.
Yeah, if you watch some of my other videos, you'll hear this loud, like, it's because like these things are just so like some of these fans. So we didn't want that in the things that we put out there. We're like, why don't we try to find we want silent, we want efficient cooling, and then you might ask, why is it standing upright instead of sitting a certain way? By having these stand upright, hot air goes upwards, so the thermals on these plus that high pressure fan, it just basically effortlessly just blows the heat through the top so that you have maximized optimal cooling. Because one of the things that we do is, in order for the Raspberry Pi to operate at what are called enterprise specifications for big businesses and high powered things, so if you wanted to really use this for a lot of business level applications as a little server to truly secure your home, you have to do what's called overclocking the hardware, which produces a tremendous amount of heat. And so you want to have something that's going to dissipate all of that heat, and then you have 2 of these things overclocked. Once again, tremendous amounts of heat can be produced, which is why you want to have something. And we wanted to create a more tactical design, because I'll show you where a lot of our, we can talk about the history of what goes on. On my LinkedIn, I actually do sort of chart out the history of my creations on my profile, which I'll show you in just a second here. If I go over to my LinkedIn profile here, what we will see, if I move my face a little bit so you can see this a little better, is on my LinkedIn profile, if you go hunt me down, I just show the general history of most of the big moments for everything that I've been working on. So if you want to take a look at a little bit of the history of this project directly, let's just deep dive into this. And you can look at this on your own time too, but I just would like to show you, where did all of this come from? And then I guess before we get too far into that, I would like to let Laura show, like, how do you actually get a hold of this? And then we can go further down the history of all of this.
Of course. So if you go to our website, notionpoint.com, and go to the Olympiad hardware, this is it. It's this Olympiad upgrade, Founders Edition, PyTinker Home Lab, Dual Pi Cluster, all-in-one bundle. So essentially you get to pick your RAM, and that does affect the price a little bit. You can get 2 4 gig Pis, a 4 gig and an 8 gig Pi, or you can get 2 8 gig Pis, and that, again, changes the price a tiny bit. And then you can pick your case color. You can see here that we have 3 specific colors. We have this green, blue, and magenta. There's also bronze, such as the faceplate here. You can get the whole case printed in those sorts of colors. And you get to pick your case color and then the color of your faceplates. And yeah, so you get to customize a little bit as well. And yeah. So essentially, besides just getting the fully built Olympiad upgrade to the PyTinker Home Lab, which is this appliance that we've created, which comes again with 2 Raspberry Pis. In this case, fully assembled, put together, we'll ship it right to you. You will also get the PyTinker overclocking workshop, which teaches you everything you need to know to kind of get below the hood and get the most out of your hardware. So there you go. It's all on our website. What else I'm going to do is put it as our featured product right on the homepage, so you can just kind of jump in and see that. I should also mention that we are only offering 10 of these appliances for sale. So if you want it, get on it, because they're not going to last long. So we've already had a lot of people expressing interest. So if this is something that you would like, go ahead and get on it. If you have any questions, please do let us know. You can send us an email, info@notionpoint.com, or you can reach out to Nato on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever.
And before we get too far away from it too, I also want to emphasize that this very specifically comes with a workshop. So
Yes.
when you see the price tag here, what I don't want anyone to get confused about is that you're just getting one of these cases. That's not true. You want to read the details. Definitely read the details, because it does specify custom-built Raspberry Pi 4B, dual Raspberry Pi cluster plus starter workshop. I have found that some people get confused, and that's completely understandable. Sometimes there's going to be a lot of information, and when there's a lot of information on pages,
There's a lot of information.
sometimes I've found that can be confusing, especially with sophisticated products, where you might look at that and be like, oh, it's just a couple Raspberry Pis. No, this is a full DevSecOps workshop that teaches you how to work with Kubernetes and Docker for DevSecOps with this developer kit, so that you can build it into a proper supercomputer and know how that works, and so that you can learn supercomputing with DevSecOps and DevSecOps technologies.
Absolutely.
Which works the same way as working with multi-billion-dollar, multi-million-dollar supercomputing data centers. My knowledge set comes from working in 4 trusts and dark sites and power grids. Well, you can bring the power of the technology that these massive companies use to your home, quite literally, and we have a full workshop to teach you all of the bits. And so really this is oriented toward professionals. If you're not a professional, or if you're not a student hoping to become a professional, I'm just going to say this is not for you, not now.
Right, but hold out, because we are going to be releasing a more consumer-friendly version of this product down the road. So hopefully, before the holidays, in time for the holiday season. So.
And so in the beginning, really, we only are supporting those who are hoping to become developers or developers, because this is indeed a developer kit, which is why we only sell it right now with the workshop, because this is a developer kit. And so that's, really half of why does this even exist? If you were to just get one of these without us providing you that guidance, we would be doing you a disservice by you'd probably be like, well, what am I going to do with this? I don't even know I have this thing and it doesn't even do anything.
Right.
That's going to, or it'll be too confusing. So we have this workshop, and then for those who are more wanting to use these for consumer purposes, we will down the road be using what we make from the developer kits to create more consumer-friendly versions, so your sales contribute to consumer-friendly solutions down the road. We will always have the developer solutions because that's our brand, that's our staple, that's what we do. We are DIY cybersecurity. We make our own stuff in-house. This is made by us. And Jordan, our CTO, who built these, let's see if I can find...
if you click on...
No, I know how to find it. I have a... I'm just going to show you who Jordan is here, because if I go and just say see all, I would like you to know who builds these, because puts so much work into these, and like he's working on these literally right now. Like this is Jordan over here. This is what he does. He makes things. He makes these things, and he puts a tremendous amount of effort into this. We built our own printing systems, and we need to, expand that out more. This is where your money goes when you buy things from us. You buy things from us, and we make more things for you. And then you buy more things from us, and then we make even more things for you. And so as long as anyone wants to buy things from us, we will keep making more things, because that's what we do with all of the money.
Reinvest.
Yeah, every single thing that we do. So to kind of get into a little bit more of like, how did we even get to this? Because it's been, oh my goodness, like it's been quite some time. I guess really it didn't take us that long to make all of these things, but...
It's been a journey though. Yeah.
Oh man. I tell people to maintain a portfolio of their work. And so I always keep a portfolio of mine, and it's honestly so easy to just keep a portfolio on LinkedIn. And so if we go all the way back where I just kind of talk about this stuff, there was one day when I made this post talking about, home security. I was like, you can actually, build a home SIM that you can connect all of your home devices to and make your home more secure and, all that good stuff, because it's just a thing. And that's how I manage my own security. When we leave on vacation and things, I know if someone's messing with my network. I just, it's a convenient and it's a comfortable thing to also have access to my own network from my cell phone, because someone else could hack into my ecosystem, but at least I'm not just like oblivious and come back to disaster and wondering what's going on in the world. And so, I do this stuff for myself, but then I was like, well, maybe I should just start telling other people about this stuff, because it's helpful for people to know that they might be able to build their own security stuff. So let's see. So as we got further into all of this, I started showing ways that you can kind of start to build, just build stuff, build clusters with Docker, and build Portainer. Something called Portainer, and then something called a Pi-hole that, how to block ads with a Raspberry Pi and Docker. So you can put this tool called Pi-hole inside of a Docker container, for those of you who know what that is. For those of you who don't know what that is, our workshop will teach you. But you can then use that, and then just right away you're able to just start blocking ads to things in your home. And this is a network-wide ad blocker, because you can have ad blocker apps installed on various things, but you can also use this tool as a red team attack device to, like, if someone connects to your network that you don't want connected, you can just disrupt their entire ability to communicate properly with systems and things. And that's a trick that Pi-hole is capable of. You can build regex attacks with Pi-hole. So, and that's something that most people don't know, is that you can red team with Pi-hole. And so I started talking a little bit about concepts like that. And so then the other thing that this is actually a pretty monumental thing, is on a single Raspberry Pi. Actually, let me just let you listen to this. This is actually worth listening to. Let me just turn the audio on this. Okay, so I've been building this architecture for a while. It's called the Inner Athena architecture. So let's take a look here. If we take a look at what I have so far, you can have on one Raspberry Pi 1, you have one user. You can have one user logged in on a separate machine, and then you can have a separate user logged in on a separate machine and a separate browser and everything if you want, and then a third one if you feel like it. And then out of the box, it works with up to 4 different separate users logged into one Raspberry Pi. That's right, 4 different users at least. And then that's probably enough of that for now, but the whole idea is that with a single Raspberry Pi, you can have multiple people connected to a single Raspberry Pi, and you can use it as an educational device. You can use it for home security. And so then we ended up just going crazy, and someone asked a question in one of the chats. Very good question in one of the chats in
Facebook.
Oh, yeah. Can you use this with the Pied Hacker Experience? Yes, you can use this with the Pied Hacker Experience. This is actually built for going through the Pied Hacker Experience. All of our workshops, these tools were built to work with our workshops.
Yeah, and actually, if you do want to purchase the Pied Hacker Experience when you go ahead and get your PyTinker workshop, or I'm sorry, your PyTinker home lab, you can get Pied Hacker Experience for 50% off. It's normally $800. You can get it for $400. So great question. And we highly, highly, highly encourage you to use this with the Pied Hacker Experience, because you can then really kind of turn this into, whatever you want it, whatever sort of product you want it to be. You can develop your own technology with it through the Pied Hacker Experience, and really take it to new levels, essentially.
Yeah, and so hopefully that answers that question. We'll go back and look at that too, because that's a good question. But before we made the case, like this is the beginnings of what turned into this case, straight up, because it started with us having, you saw that we were doing software stuff, and we were like, and we were playing with the Argon, and we were creating Pi holes, and we were doing all these various things, and then we were like, well, how many pies should we buy to see how deep can we go down the supercomputing rabbit hole with this thing? And this was just the beginning. This was, at this point, this is a long time ago. Let's see, how long ago was this? This was
4 months.
4 months ago. So 4 months ago, here's the beginnings of our Docker Swarm and Kubernetes work. We've been working on this, which it's been a journey, and then finally, that led to the first ever just basic cluster that we built, which is, let's see if I can get an image of this. Here we go. So this is a 7 Pi cluster that came from that, where we have this controller Pi right here. And this is, running Docker and Kubernetes, and then these are all running Docker and Kubernetes, and then there you go. So you can just keep scaling out and adding more things, and then they all talk together, and you can just continually and endlessly scale how many Pis you want to add to your supercomputer. And why do we use Raspberry Pis? Because they're easy to get in abundance, and they're easy to get in standard hardware, and they're easy to scale.
And so you can cluster how many thousand together or something?
You can cluster up to 5,000 of them seamlessly, as long as you have the power and the resources to do it. You got to have all the plugs and things. But you can cluster up to 5,000 Raspberry Pis together with the formatting that we've built. So really, you get one of our little supercomputers, and you learn how to use 2. Well, I already know someone else who's going to be using 3, just so all of you out there thinking about getting these, there's someone who's already going to be using 3 of these, which means 6 Raspberry Pis for them with our little supercomputing unit. And it has better cooling, or at least better modularity, better portability, better tactile response than even this. And one of the reasons why we have the design standing upright in the way that it does, this is actually the last little image that I want to show you, because it translated into why is it standing on its side, and why is that important, if I can find the image. Oh, it's got to be in here somewhere. Well, maybe I won't be able to find it right now. I don't want to make everyone just watch me scroll for all these things, but basically there is this thing that I made called a Noctua Pi. One of these days I'll dig up the image of it. But you can, because the Raspberry Pi sits on its side, you can get a Hack 5 pineapple and pop that in there and then stack another thing on top of it. Because this case, they sit upright, right? So this is one of the prototypes.
Yep, that was one of our very first cases that we printed.
Oh yeah, you see what it used to look like, and you know all the stuff. Like, and we've gone through so many different little prototypes to
and
give
Nathan
you.
has one on his desk too, but it's in use, so it's not easy to show on camera.
Yeah, well, I wonder if I can move it. It's connected to a long power cord. So this one's using what's called Power over Ethernet. This was the original prototype, and this one
Yep.
is using.
You can pop that little top off too.
Yeah, hold on.
Oh yeah, careful.
Yeah. So it's got it has a solid state hard drive. That's what you'd see in a normal desktop computer. And then on the inside of this one, it has, you can pop the little lid off. The whole thing has a heat sink covering the whole body. These other ones this one has a single Pi because this giant heat sink that takes up the entire thing is too big to fit another Pi in here. So at first we were like, oh sweet, we can just have a heat sink that takes up the entire body. It turned out to just be like overkill cooling. Like, this is more cooling than anyone ever needed, like, period. So we were like, well, no one needs this much cooling. Instead, it makes more sense to use the real estate to add another Raspberry Pi. Mm-hmm. And so, because the little Noctua fan down here is so powerful, it's on right now, that's why I hit my finger on it. And this right here is called Power over Ethernet. So one of the things that we have is optional, where the power is coming from the Ethernet cable. So that's something that you want to think about is if you're getting one of these, message us if you want a model that has Power over Ethernet, because by default they don't come with that. It's an optional thing, but we will build that into your system with the little Power over Ethernet module, so that the Ethernet cord here is the power cord. And that also means that you can use this USB-C port here, because Raspberry Pis are normally powered by USB-C, but these do data now. And if you have the 8GB Raspberry Pi, this actually has transfers more data than the 4GB model of Raspberry Pi through this USB-C. They're actually not the same. So 8GB Raspberry Pis on Power over Ethernet are not one and the same as 4GB Raspberry Pis. So if you're buying them, do think about that. Do you want to use the USB-C port for any reason? And on the models that we have right now, to kind of show you, where did I put that? So going back to these Pi models, if you use these with Power over Ethernet, that does mean that you can plug an external hard drive into one of these and boot these from external hard drives, and you can even build them into NASs. So if you just wanted to build a NAS, then basically you can just get one of these friendly little creatures here and engineer your own NAS, learn how to do it, and then you have all the control over how it works, and just pop a solid state into the side there. And so that's why some models, especially if we're talking about like a home NAS model, they don't come with a strapped on solid state. So our professional models are for people who aren't going to be running around. And we will later on be releasing more tactical models. But one of the benefits in this being able to sit upright, and I don't know if I have my pineapple with me. Maybe not. I thought I had it on my desk.
It's over here.
Oh, really? Oh, if she finds my pineapple, I'll show you how. Oh, yes, that's the pineapple. Like, if you're a lazy coder, sometimes instead of building all your own code for things, you can go and use other people's hardware and use their code with your code and be lazy. And so this thing's designed to where you can take, it's upright, so you can stick other modules into it and build antenna arrays on it quite effortlessly. If I go and do all these things, I'm gonna build a. So this is basically a tactical design where then we have all these antennas here, and so then you can turn it into an attack device for red teaming, and it's on right now. I'm doing all of this while it's just like on and running. Like, why not? It's plugged into the Ethernet. Give it little Viking horns so that it can take over the universe for you, because this is always nice. Oh yeah, let's go. If anyone really wants to know why, the other reason why it was upright like this, there you go. Here we go. So now I can add more antennas than this, but really this is all I need. So then I can just let it sit here, and this thing's now just like super tall.
Super Pi.
So this is like a tactical configuration where I can use this for like de-authing and things like that on the field. So if you're a pen tester, bam, now this is a field pen test device, where you just set up your pen test device, and it's rather dangerous and destructive if that's if you're a pen tester. It's just what you do. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about pen testing. I do it. It's rather destructive for the stuff that you're supposed to be testing. Just don't be too destructive. Keep it ethical out there. Stay consensual. I'm not actively using this, and it's going to be running random scripts, so I'm going to unplug that because I don't want to run those scripts right now on my development device. But as you can see, I use my own stuff. As a matter of fact, we even have these set up to where I have what's called a satellite that I've built into this that connects back to it too. So if I want to connect to my device from what's called a satellite touchscreen that I built, which is also Pi powered, I don't have one of my dashboards on here right now, but it's like there you go. This is my home security operations center, and I can just access all my stuff however I want in many convenient ways. But we do this stuff so that people can have home security and do all kinds of crazy stuff, and I just keep pulling out more pies because I just have too many of them. So anyways, I just wanted to talk about our new release, and going back to the question of, can you do this with the Pied Hacker experience? Yes. For those who don't know what the Pied Hacker experience is, I would like to talk about this because something we are actually doing for all of this with the Pied Hacker experience. Let me move my face to the other side of the screen. Make it tiny. Okay, so like I said, we did indeed build these to work with our workshops in general. And as a result, what we've done is, for anyone who buys, say, like the $700, well, any of these, anyone who gets the Olympiad upgrade to get one of these kits with a Pied Tinker workshop, make sure that you follow the instructions here. If you don't follow the instructions here, then you'll get confused, but we'll make sure that you get your workshops. So I guess it doesn't really matter if you don't follow the instructions, but whatever you do, just know that this comes with the workshop that is seen right. Let's see, let me go to shop, Olympiad hardware. So like this workshop right here comes with the upgrade. So this upgrade is for this, so you don't want to pay the $350. This when you go and add both of these to cart, it automatically makes this $0. So if anyone's confused by that, just ask us. I'm a friendly person. I try to get back to people fairly quickly, so don't be shy if you have questions. And we do only have 10 of these right now, so as soon as we hit 10, we just don't have the manufacturing capacity at this time to produce more. It's just how it is at this time until we get more manufacturing power. So we can only do 10 at a time right now. So we're going to be doing Founders Editions. And for the Pied Hacker experience, if I click on this, you'll notice that it's a bring your own device workshop. And so because we have built this to work with this, then we're going to give you 50% off once you buy. So anyone who buys the other workshop here, so like if you go and buy this upgrade, then the Pied Hacker experience, which is normally $800, we'll go ahead and just give it to you for $400 because we made it for you to be able to work with our workshops, and me clicking around is probably a little confusing. But like I said, we'll add the links in the description after this, and then we'll also put the new stuff on the home page, like on the front page, so that it's not all too confusing. But we're going to give you 50% off on this. If anyone wants to know how to get their 50% off on that, just send us a message and like we'll keep it simple. So just send me a message if you want to get Pied Hacker experience and the upgrade and all that good stuff. So yeah. So anyways, the bottom line is that this truly completes what we've been working on. This is that thing that just like draws it all together, brings it into just really what we wanted it to be all along, is the device that you can learn DevSecOps on, you can learn clustering easily on, you can build home security easily on it, and you can start getting into supercomputing from the comfort of your home without even, having thousands and thousands of dollars to be able to afford learning how to do supercomputing and have access to that yourself. Learn how it's built from ground up. So that's what we're all about. And we do hope that, some other things that if anyone does get these now, we're giving engravings as well. So you can have your name engraved on these for those who are buying our Founders Edition pies here. So you'll get a name engraving included with that as well. And if you don't want to use standard plug into wall power and you want to use power over Ethernet, then you have to put in a special request and we can build that in instead of giving you the wall power plugs. So anyways, that's what's going on. And I just want to say thank you everyone. And for all of those who are interested, feel free to message us. We have a lot more where this came from. Really, this is just the beginning. And we're just going to keep building because that's just what we do.
That's right. So yeah, go ahead and go on the website. It's on the homepage now.
NoShaPoint.com.
NoShaPoint.com.
Mm-hmm.
And only 10 available. So get it while supplies last.
Yeah, only 10 available. Get it while supplies last. And like I said, we hand make these. So because we have to hand make each and every one of these and we do your own engraving, understand that does take time, so it can take up to 6 weeks depending on how many orders we get overall and how crazy it gets. But
for manufacturing and delivery, we should have it to your door.
Yeah, to your door no later than 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's just because we quite literally make these. Like we just make the whole thing ourselves.
Oh, and one other thing, I'm not sure if you said this already, is that these do come with our PyTinker warranty on the Raspberry Pi's PCBs. So if you're overclocking or pushing these things to the limit, you end up frying a board, we will replace that twice, up to 2 more times. Yeah. We'll send you up to 2 more additional
we'll
Raspberry
replace
Pi 4Bs, and whichever RAM you got, we'll just send you a new one. So you can also know that you can test with that peace of mind. So
with this package, if you accidentally fry it, that's okay because we'll send you another one.
Yeah, send it back to us. We'll send you a new one.
Yep. So and that's another thing that we do offer is we might not have the best shipping, but because we have to build it. But by the time you get it, like it's a true Tinker Lab, and while you're working with it, if you do anything to it, just send it back to us and we'll replace it up to 2 times so you can just fry it into dust twice by accident. And it's not a big deal because we want you to be able to experiment with this, learn with this, and it not be something that's holding you back because you're worried about the hardware, scared to damage it. We want you to abuse this thing. We want you to push it to its limits. We want you to really make this thing, like crank it and do some damage with it.
Absolutely. And then the one final piece that you do also get with this is once you become a paying customer, you get access to our Discord server for support and just more community. Essentially, we have a Discord server that we use for community support. If you're having trouble with anything, if you just want to brainstorm with other developers, like get in there and start asking questions.
Completely. Yeah. So anyways,
it's a lot of information, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of information. So anyways, thank you for everyone who's checked this out. If anyone has questions, feel free to message me on LinkedIn or in the Facebook group or even on YouTube. Anywhere that you see that I'm at, like you just message me.
Feel free to reach out. We will respond.
I'm a friendly person, and
That's right.
Laura's a friendly person, so we're good. and you're all good too. So thanks again. We literally wouldn't have any of this happening if it wasn't for all of you out there who've made this possible. So thank you, and we hope your continued support. Let us know what would make you happy so that all of this becomes worth it, because we are putting everything we have into you, which means our time, our money, and we're giving it to you so that we can make you some cool stuff. And we're super excited for you to actually play with it.
Yeah, and we can't wait to hear what everybody thinks too. So yeah, let us know what you think. Let us know if you want one. Find it on our website, ask us questions, and yeah.
Yeah. Thank you,
We'll
everyone.